Hey, church family, I wanted to take this opportunity to present you with another word of encouragement as we continue to pray for the sanity of our country. You know, it was 2 months ago when the mayor of Washington, D.C. renamed a section of 16th Street to the Black Lives Matter Plaza. And not only did Mayor Muriel Bowser signify this momentous occasion by erecting a new street sign with the new name of this plaza, but she also ordered the Department of Public Works to paint the popular phrase, Black Lives Matter, which was actually spelled out down the center of 16th Street with 35-foot yellow capital letters. Now, in light of this decision, it seems to me that Mayor Bowser is a leader who's ready to defend the lives of those who are unfairly oppressed. With that being the case, well, I can't help but to wonder then why she was so quick to order the arrest of 2 students who were using chalk to write the phrase, Black Preborn Lives Matter. It was actually last Saturday on August the 1st when officers there in Washington, D.C., they arrested 2 college students who were protesting in front of a Planned Parenthood abortion mill right there in their city. And you know, we have to ask, were they starting fires? No. Were they destroying the building? No. Were they gathering en masse in the middle of the street in order to stop the flow of traffic? No. Instead, they were peacefully protesting as they used chalk to write Black Preborn Lives Matter on the sidewalk outside the facility. So now let's get this straight. Mayor Bowser, she can order the Department of Public Works to paint Black Lives Matter in 35-foot yellow capital letters on 16th Street. But peaceful protesters aren't allowed to write the phrase Black Preborn Lives Matter on a sidewalk with chalk, which can be washed off with water. This seems completely unreasonable to me, especially as we consider the foundations of Planned Parenthood. You might not know this, but the founder of Planned Parenthood was a staunch eugenicist. And just to be clear, eugenics is the practice or advocacy of controlled selective breeding of human populations. And since this was Sanger's goal, the controlled selective breeding of human populations, we shouldn't be surprised to learn that this founder of Planned Parenthood, she was more than happy to work with the Ku Klux Klan in order to stop undesirables from reproducing. Listen, not only was she in favor of forced sterilization of unemployables and criminals and illiterates, but she also opened the first birth control clinic in the United States and established organizations that eventually evolved into the Planned Parenthood Federation of America. It was actually in her autobiographical book where she explains her goal as being this. She writes, it's the gradual suppression, elimination, and eventual extinction of defective stocks, those human weeds which threaten the blooming of the finest flowers of American civilization. This was her stated goal. And knowing that this statement still leaves a little room for interpretation, let's consider a letter that Sanger wrote to Clarence Gamble of Procter & Gamble. In this letter, she explains how they could accomplish their eugenic goal within the African American community. Here's how she puts it. The most successful educational approach to the Negro is through a religious appeal. We don't want the word to get out that we want to exterminate the Negro population, and the minister is the man who can straighten out that idea if it ever occurs to any of their more rebellious members. Wow. As we consider this twisted statement, it's no wonder that Reverend Jesse Jackson once railed against abortion by calling it black genocide as he compared abortion to slavery. Now, you might not know this, but more than 20 million babies of color have been killed in abortion clinics since Roe v. Wade. And at this point in time, listen, more babies of color are aborted in New York City than are actually being born. Now, I realize that those who are pro-choice will insist that, well, the embryo isn't yet viable, and so it's not the taking of a life just yet. And yet, listen, if we found something similar to an embryo on Mars, scientists would insist that they have found life in outer space. If we found something similar to an embryo, on the moon, it would be like, oh, we found life. We found life in outer space. But you find the same thing in a womb, and, well, it's not life yet. Come on. Those who insist that an embryo isn't yet a life, they've been deceived. They've been deceived by those who have convinced so many Americans that reproductive rights ought to include the right to kill an unborn baby. And knowing that 38% of the babies being aborted are babies of color, I can't help but to wonder why BLM activists like Mayor Bowser would order the arrest of peaceful protesters who were simply defending the constitutional rights of those black preborn lives that ought to matter to all of us. I pray, and I encourage you to pray. Let's pray for the day when every American will finally embrace the words of King David, who worshiped the Lord by declaring this. He says, "For you formed my inward parts. You covered me in my mother's womb. I will praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are your works, and that my soul knows very well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in secret and skillfully wrought in the lowest parts of the earth. Your eyes saw my substance, being yet unformed. And in your book they were all written, the days fashioned for me, when as yet there were none of them." According to the scriptures, every preborn life matters to the Lord. And it's for this reason that I encourage every person, if we really believe that black lives matter, then we ought to seek out political leaders who will defund and dismantle Margaret Sanger's eugenic legacy. It's time for Christians to defend the preborn black lives that are being aborted, because, listen, all lives matter to the Lord. With this as our goal, I encourage you, let's fight the good fight of faith, all for the glory of God.